Welcome back. Welcome back. We are doing fiscal policy chapter. Good morning, good evening, good night, good afternoon, depending on the time that you are seeing this lecture. When I say good night, please don't turn this off and go to sleep. We are doing something very important here. We are doing fiscal policy. We learned about fiscal consolidation and fiscal stimulus. Yes or no? We learned the very important concept. Just I'll give you some homework. Just Google fiscal consolidation and just go to the news tab. See, always use the Google ka news tab. That is the most important tool which you can use for finding anything. So any term which you read in economics, any term which you read while we are doing the lecture, like say I told you about fiscal consolidation, I told you deficits and all of those things, just try to Google it and don't look at the web links, just see the news tab of it. Then you will get news articles which has that particular keyword or that particular term or concept which we learn, and then read that article just upar say, or just skim through it. Then you'll realize the context in which that term is used. I cannot tell you every context in which the term is used. That you have to build, layer by layer. You have to build each and every brick, and that is how you learn economics. Okay, that is how you learn to speak economics. See, even if I teach you Spanish, if I teach you articles, consonants, numbers, month names, and grammar, unless until you practice it, unless until you read books or you watch Spanish movies, you will not realize the language. It is the same with economics. If I tell you fiscal consolidation, you have to know the context in which it is used. You have to know how it is used. Okay? And trust me, this approach will land you somewhere above the requirements of UPSC. You won't match the requirements of UPSC. You will be a little bit above it. And there is no harm in being above a particular requirement. Okay, you will have some more knowledge only, right? See this, they have given in the government document only. Ki if rupee comes from, so your entire income, if your income is 1 rupee, then what is it showing? Rupee comes from 36 paise comes from borrowings and other liabilities. 36 paise you borrow. Okay? Corporation tax, income tax, customs, union excise duties, goods and service tax, GST, non-tax revenue, non-debt capital receipts, disinvestment. You remember disinvestment? Okay? So budget is a very beautiful document to understand all this fiscal policy and everything. Rupee goes to, so 1 rupee goes where? Where do you spend your, so major chunk I can see is this and this, right? See this, interest payments is the major chunk, right? And state share of taxes and duties. You have to give your, so when you read center-state relations, financial relations chapter, you will realize ki states also get a lion's share of taxes. That is called alternative scheme of devolution. It is there in polity. So you read it there, or you will, when lectures will happen, you will come to know about this. Then centrally sponsored scheme and central sector scheme. These are two different types of schemes which governments run. So all schemes which you know of, Kisan Yojana or any Jan Dhan Yojana, any kind of scheme which you come across, it is either a centrally sponsored scheme or a central sector scheme. Now let me take this opportunity to tell you the difference between these two things. What is the centrally sponsored scheme and what is the central sector scheme? Because we have this, it has come across this terminology we have now. So let me tell you. So centrally sponsored scheme, what do you think? So this differentiation is to show one type of scheme wherein only center will give funds, wherein only central government, union government will give funds, and the other type of schemes are where center contributes something and states contribute something. So if let's say PM Kisan scheme, for example, if we have to start a scheme for welfare of farmers, then central government will say ki states, you pay 40% of whatever is required for the scheme and we will pay 60%. Okay? Such schemes where center and states both contribute, the proportion varies, 60, 40, 75, 25, 90, 10, it depends. Such schemes where center, states both contribute are called as, what do you think? Are called as centrally sponsored scheme. See, the name English may it suggests it is entirely sponsored by center, yes or no? But it is not the case. It is actually implemented by the state. The center comes in as a help for sponsoring, part of it, not 100%. Now, why there are different percentages, 60, 40, 75, 25, 90, 10? The reason being, There are some states which are very backward financially, for example, northeastern states, hilly regions and all. So for them, center does 90% of the expenditure and states have to contribute only 10%. But states like Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Rajasthan, their states have money, so they can contribute 40% also and center contributes 60%. These are the nitty-gritties of it. And central sector scheme means entirely sponsored by center. 100% of the budget or 100% of the outlay or 100% of the expenditure is done by the center. Okay? This is a bit confusing because the name is such, centrally sponsored schemes, but centrally sponsored schemes are, so you know, there is an MCQ which is also very common. Centrally sponsored schemes are schemes which are 100% sponsored by the center. So it is not true. Centrally sponsored schemes are not 100% sponsored by the center. Center and state both contribute. Here is where a center contributes 100%. Central sector scheme. So keep that in mind. Then what is other expenditure? We have pensions. Then we have finance commission and other transfers, subsidies, defense. You might not, it is not important to know all of this now, because when you have a solid foundation of economics, then when you do next year's budget, then we'll go through this in detail. This is anyways last year's, no? This is anyways old. Okay? Right? Did you understand? Now let me take you to some very interesting theories or some interesting concepts. Now we spoke about debt. What is debt? What is debt? The total borrowing by the government. Okay? The total borrowing which you have is known as debt. Now tell me one thing, if you take a loan of 1 lakh today, if you take a loan of 2 lakhs tomorrow, your total debt will be 3 lakh, yes or no? Okay? Similarly, when we speak about government debt, it is the total debt which has been accumulated by the government, which has been taken by the government over n number of years. Now compare this with fiscal deficit. What is fiscal deficit? It is also debt, it is also borrowing, yes or no? But keep this differentiation in mind. This is very simple or common doubt which students ask me later on. That is why I am clarifying it here only. So when we say fiscal deficit of 6.8% of GDP, which means current year's borrowings will be 6.8% of GDP. Current years. So if today GDP is 100 rupees and we say fiscal deficit is 6.8%, which means government wants to borrow 6.8%. It will borrow, it will take a loan of 6.8 rupees. Yes, but government has already borrowed some money 2 years back, 3 years back. Last year's fiscal deficit government has already borrowed. Before that fiscal deficit government has already borrowed. So this 6.8 will already add to the debt which is existing. So this is a storehouse and this is new you are adding. Next year, let's say fiscal deficit is 5%. So 5 rupees again government will add to the debt. So when you say the total debt of the government includes the borrowings of all the years taken together. Every year we are just adding some of the debt to it. Every year we are borrowing fiscal deficit and we are adding to it. Did you understand this or not, or there is a confusion? See, simple thing. Every year you have to, let's say every month you have to ask parents for money. Simple, you have to ask your parents for pocket money every month. Okay? But you are also saving some money, or you are also you are not spending that pocket money. Let's say you have that pocket money. Jan May you get 100 rupees pocket money, Feb May you get 100 rupees pocket money, and let's say by December, your parents ask how much money do you want for December also. You say I want 500 rupees in December. For in that 1 month you need 500. They ask you why. You say because I have to, let's say, buy a new book or something like that. Okay? What will your parents say? Over there, how much I have given you? 1200 rupees or 1100 rupees I have already given you. Because Jan May also you took money, Feb May also you took money, March May also you took money. Yes or no? So your total money which you have taken from your parents is your total debt. But this month, how much you are taking? 500 rupees. So that becomes your fiscal deficit. So do not confuse this with this. When we say fiscal deficit is 6.8% of GDP, which means this year you need to borrow 6.8% of this year's GDP. When you borrow it, you went to the bank, you told I need 10 lakh crore rupees as loan because that is my fiscal deficit for current year. Always remember, budget is for 1 year. So this year your fiscal deficit is 10 lakh crore rupees. You went to the bank gave you 10 lakh rupees. That 10 lakh rupees will be added to your account. Yes or no? Is bank giving it to you for free? No, it is a loan. Okay? Bank also says that last year you had 5 lakh crores as fiscal deficit. So total how much debt you have? 10 plus 5, 15 lakh crores. So that total is your debt, your government debt, and fiscal deficit for current year is only 10 lakh crores. Did you understand this? Okay. So when I say current year's fiscal deficit is 6.8% of GDP, and if I say debt, accumulated debt is 55% of GDP, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? That if my GDP is 100 rupees, current year, if my GDP is 100 rupees, current year I have to borrow 6.8 rupees, but I have already borrowed 55 rupees. Total milake of past various years. Some years I might have borrowed 2 rupees, some years I might have borrowed 5 rupees. Total debt is 55% of GDP, means total burden I have this much, and I am adding to my burden every year due to fiscal deficit, due to fresh borrowing. Yes or no? I will also reduce my burden when I will repay earlier loans. So let's say next year, 20 years ago you had taken a loan, next year you repaid everything with installment, with last installment and last EMI. So this will reduce also. But new GDP, new FD is also coming, this will increase also. So this keeps on shifting depending on the repayments. Yes or no? If you pay money back to your parents, your debt will reduce. But if you borrow again from your parents, your debt will also increase. So this is debt, this is the concept of debt, and this is fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit is nothing but borrowings for current year, which adds to the existing pool of your debt. Okay, this is your swimming pool with all the water, and every day you add 1 bucket of water. This is that 1 bucket which is getting added. You might remove also some buckets of water because of repayment. So the level of pool keeps on changing. Did you understand this? This is the concept of debt. Now tell me, now very important, we are going into some important discussions. We are going to revolve our discussion around fiscal deficit only. What do we mean by fiscal consolidation? What do we mean? Try to explain what is fiscal consolidation. What is fiscal consolidation? Fiscal consolidation is nothing but reduction of fiscal deficit. Yes, we saw after 9.5% we are moving towards fiscal consolidation. Fiscal stimulus is nothing but increasing your fiscal deficit by increasing your expenditure, by providing a boost to the economy, right? Sorry, the question comes, this is the golden question. How much fiscal deficit is right? Whether 6.8% is right, whether 5 is right, whether 5.5 is right, whether 6 is right. How do you decide how much fiscal deficit is good for the economy? Okay? That question we have to answer now. Is zero fiscal deficit right, or is zero fiscal deficit good? Think and tell me. You know, we have leveled ki our expenses are equal to our incomes. There is no need to borrow. We are at 0% fiscal deficit. We don't have to borrow anything. Is it good or is it bad? And let's say you have leveled and you follow a policy of no borrowing, which means ki you cannot, you decide ki I will not borrow, which means you will not spend more than what you can earn. Okay, your monthly salary is 50,000 rupees. You decide ki I don't want to take loan from any bank, which means you will keep your expenses less than 50,000 rupees only. You will either be zero or you will be in surplus. Yes or no? Suppose government also follows this policy. Okay? Government also decides not to borrow from them. What will it have to do? Currently, if the fiscal deficit is, let's say, 10,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees is nothing but a result of higher expenses and lower revenues. Yes or no? Because that is how you run a deficit. So either government will try to increase revenue or government will try to reduce expenses. I told you that increasing revenue is a bit difficult. So let's say government scraps its entire capital expenditure part. Okay? Deficit goes down. You are in a surplus of 7,000 rupees now. You are in a surplus of 7,000 rupees. Right? Or any other way, taxes are increased drastically, you are in a surplus now. Now, is this situation good or is this situation bad? That is what I want to ask you. If you have a fiscal deficit of 0% or if you have a fiscal surplus, then is it good for the economy or is it bad for the economy? I will give you proper 60-70 seconds to think, and yes or no is not is not important, but the justification behind that yes or no is required. Why do you think yes? Why do you think no? I gave you a good example also. You can enter a surplus by reducing your entire expenditure, no? So when I tell you that some country is in fiscal surplus of 2% and we are here at deficit of 6%, can you draw a judgment which country is better, or do you have to dig further? So my point is this good for the economy or is this bad for the economy? Just take a minute and think about it. What do you think? This is the dilemma which was faced by economists also. They say that even though on paper it might seem good, but this is not actually good, na? Because you are reducing your expenses, you need expenditure. Why you need expenditure? Because if you don't construct bridge, how will you generate employment? If you don't give subsidy, how will farmers prosper? If you don't give salary, how will administration work? Yes or no? If you don't spend on defense, if you reduce your defense expense, what will happen? There are 3 countries which are ready to attack on us. Okay? So that is why not necessarily fiscal deficit is bad. Do you agree with me? If a fiscal deficit is, let's say, positive, which means 3-4% deficit you have, it is good because you are actually spending more. Now where you are spending, that is important. Are you spending on revenue expenditure or capital expenditure? The more you spend on capital expenditure, the better it is. Yes or no? Because that is like an investment. Okay. Now second question comes, how much? How much more? We came to a conclusion that fiscal deficit is good for the economy. 1%, 2%, 10%, 50%, how much fiscal deficit is good for the economy? Here you can say that minimum fiscal deficit is good for the economy. Some fiscal deficit is required, but minimum is good. Why? Because if you borrow more today, your debt will increase. Your debt will increase, your debt will become bigger, and then repayment will suffer. And this bigger debt will result in greater interest to the bank or greater interest outflow, which will constrain your ability to conduct constructive expenditures, to construct capital expenditure. Yes or no? If more of your funds are tied up in bank interest and EMI, then you have less funds to spend on good things. If let's say you are earning 60,000 rupees, bank EMI is 50,000 rupees, you are only left with 10,000 rupees to spend on things which you actually want. Similarly, if government keeps on adding on to its debt, it will spend more and more on interest on this loan and less on other things. We have so many things to spend on: defense subsidies, capital expenses. But if interest on loan is bigger, remember primary deficit, if interest on loan is bigger, then you will have very less amount to spend on other things. So that is why a proper balance has to be made. Fiscal deficit has to be good enough to keep on the expenditure going, but also not high that your entire future expenditure is compromised. Do you agree? Now let's say you go to a bank and you give him a salary slip of 1 lakh rupees per month. You need a loan. Okay? You need a loan of, let's say, 50 lakh rupees. Some other customer comes, he gives the bank wala a person of same. He is like you only. He gives the bank wala a salary slip of 1 lakh rupees. He also needs 50 lakh rupees loan. Both are asking for the same loan. There are 2 bank people sitting there. Bank person asks you, do you have any other loan? Bank person asks you, have you taken any other loan? You say, no, I have not taken. This is my first loan. Or I had taken a loan, but I had repaid it. Now I don't have any loan. That other person says, sir, I already have 30 lakh rupees of loan on me. What do you think? Will bank readily give you loan or him loan? Bank will readily give loan to us because we don't have existing burden on us. Okay? Always remember, in loan, banks check your repayment capacity. If you are not able to repay, bank will not give you loan today. Simple, if you are giving loan to someone, a family friend, you ask whether he will be able to repay that loan or not. If he is not able to repay, you will not give him money. Similarly, bank will not give that second person money or might give him less money because he already has 30 lakh worth of loan. Same goes to government. When government goes to banks for borrowing and when government comes to us, individuals, for borrowing, we ask bank whether you are able to repay or not. If we ask government whether you will be able to repay or not. If government is not able to repay, then we will not give money or banks will not give. That is why more and more of debt is bad. And where more and more of debt comes from? Higher fiscal deficit. So higher fiscal deficit is bad, but fiscal deficit is good. This is the irony, this is the paradox. ठीक है? Yes, right. Now, in a developing country like India, what do you think assumes priority? Expenditure, more expenditure or less expenditure? More expenditure, because you have to construct houses for poor people, you have to feed the people, you have to subsidize food grains. You know, if you don't subsidize, people might not even have money to eat one meal a day. Okay? So that is why cutting expenditure is not an option. For India, cutting expenditure is not an option. We are constantly trying to raise revenue. There is no doubt about it. Disinvestment we are doing, so many things we are doing. So cutting expenditure is not an option, which means we have to run a fiscal deficit, yes or no, because there is no option. We have to borrow, right? Very important. This kind of economic policy where we borrow to spend. We are not reducing our expenditure. See, we can reduce our expenditure tomorrow, we can be in surplus. Simple. But we are consciously choosing to borrow and spend. We are consciously choosing to borrow more and more and spend more and more because we have a lot of obligations. We are a government, we have a lot of obligations. And this kind of, you can say, financing which we are doing by running a deficit, we are running a deficit consciously. See, bear in mind, tomorrow we can reduce the fiscal deficit to zero. We have to shut down all the schemes, we have to shut down army funding, everything. We can reduce it to zero. But does it make sense? It does not make sense. Especially for a developing country like India, we have to spend. So this kind of policy where you run a deficit consciously, you run a deficit, you borrow consciously to finance so many things, is called as deficit financing. We are playing at high level now. We have leveled up. What a joke. This is called as deficit financing. What do you mean by deficit financing? Is running a deficit to finance your expenditure, to finance your country's expenditure. Is deficit financing. Does India follow deficit financing? What do you think? Yes, we are running deficits, 2%, 3%, 8%, 9%, 6%. We are running deficit. It is conscious. It is not by chance or by mistake. It is conscious that we are running deficits because we want to finance this thing. Yes or no? ठीक है? Chalo, let me quickly take you to one level further. This is the highest level which we operate on in terms of fiscal policy. Now, deficit financing is what? Results in what? Fiscal consolidation or fiscal stimulus? You only tell me. Deficit financing results in fiscal consolidation or fiscal stimulus? It results in fiscal stimulus. Okay? Fiscal stimulus means what? An expansionary policy or a contractionary policy? Fiscal stimulus means an expansionary policy. Now, next level we are coming. What do you think will happen to prices in fiscal stimulus? Prices will increase or prices will reduce? What do you think will happen to general prices? Apply your brain and tell me. When government is spending a lot of amount, when government is following an expansionary policy, where government is pushing in money, where government is doing fiscal stimulus, okay? When government is doing deficit financing, what do you think will happen to prices? Prices will increase or prices will reduce? Always remember, we are doing all of this because we want to take our economy upwards, which means we are increasing prices. After a point of time, we have to stop. Yes or no? After a point of time, we have to stop because it will lead to inflation. Okay? So can I say deficit financing leads to inflation? Can I say this? It leads to inflation. Yes or no? It leads to inflation. And inflation is not, I'm not talking about high inflation, low inflation. It leads to inflation. Even a 2 rupee thing, if it costs 2.1 rupee, it is inflation. Okay? So it leads to inflation. Deficit financing leads to inflation. How? Fiscal consolidation, fiscal stimulus, expansionary fiscal policy leads to inflation. Yes or no? So how much? And deficit financing is nothing but higher fiscal deficit. Yes or no? So higher fiscal deficit is resulting in higher inflation because you are spending more, you are borrowing more, and prices are also increasing. Okay? So whether to base our economic policy on inflation or whether to base our economic policy on fiscal deficit, and when to stop this, because this is causing this to increase. So when to stop this is the prime question of fiscal policy of any country in the world. This is what economists are paid for. This is what their job is. This is who work on fiscal policy. This is how this is the question. The answer to this question is what they try to find day in, day out, and they try to maintain a balance between this, because too much of this is bad, too less of this is also bad, because if there is not enough inflation, suppliers will not be encouraged to supply, okay, and they will shut their business down. So like I told you, some price rise has to be there because you have to encourage. Think from a businessman angle point of view, if you are not getting enough revenue, you will not operate that business. So inflation has to be there, deficit financing has to be there. How much is the question? Okay, in 1 hour I can give you 100 articles. I'm not joking. I can just go to Google and I can give you 100 articles in 1 hour, and which talk about this question only. Did you understand? This is the highest level of fiscal policy discussion we will go, because इसके ऊपर भी there are a few things, but they are completely irrelevant for economics, for UPSC point of view. They are very good for MA or for economics study, the branch study, but we are in general studies. So now we are here. Let us breathe for a minute and let us try to sink in whatever has been discussed. So we started with C plus I plus G plus X minus M. We know that government has to step in if C plus I doesn't work due to some reasons which we have discussed. Then Keynes said that you have to pull up. Then we came to government seat and we said how to pull up. I gave you only one tool, which is taxes. Can you name a few tools which we have discussed? Increasing disinvestment is also one of the tools. Remember, any way in which you can reduce your expense or reduce your revenue is the tool. I gave you the primary tool, which is taxes, right? Then we came to know about fiscal stimulus. We came to know about fiscal consolidation. We came to know about expansionary policy, fiscal policy, not monetary, because we are going to talk about expansionary monetary policy in the next lecture also. Okay, immediate in the, not in the next lecture, sorry, next to next lecture, right? Because like I told you, we will take a small detour and we will cover taxation after fiscal policy, and then we'll come back to fiscal policy and go to monetary policy. See, I hope you are enjoying all these lectures. I know you are sitting at home and you wish to be here. Even I wish you were here, but I hope you are enjoying these lectures, because if you understand this, now trust me, now reading newspaper will be completely different experience for you. Okay, I have told you 3 things out of thousands of things which are there in economy. Economy is huge. You need to read every day to understand economics. There will be a lot of topics which we'll consciously not cover and which we'll unconsciously leave out, because we have a limited time frame. 30-40 lectures are simply not enough. If you give me 100 lectures, then I might cover majority of the economics. But still, some things would be there which you have to read on your own. If you don't understand, I am always here. Okay? Right? Deficit financing, fiscal deficit, inflation, all of these questions are answered by economists. All of these, why they are paid, why they go to Stanford, why they go to Harvard and all of those big schools, why they learn highest level economics to find answer to this question. What to do, when to stop, when not to stop. Because see, it is like drinking. Some drinking is okay, but when to stop is a question. I don't drink at all, but I know this dilemma which everyone faces. Right? Okay? Now, we saw budget, we saw the components of budget, and we know that budget is not presented out of thin air. Constitution requires government to present budget. So this is not covered by your lectures yet, but Article 112 of the Constitution of India mentions or mandates governments to present budget, and a very basic thing to know is that the word budget is never not mentioned in the Constitution. It is nowhere mentioned. When you will do polity, when you will come to that chapter, I think Parliament chapter, you will come to know that the word budget is not mentioned. Article 112 states that central and states have to present an annual financial statement. Okay, now you don't have to write this. This is a polity part which I am teaching you. Annual financial statement. See, we are also covering point number 3 of the syllabus. If you have your attention here, point number 3 is government budgeting. We are also covering that simultaneously. Annual financial statement. ठीक है. So but article 112 mentions annual financial statement they have to do, and the very important point which I want to make is article 112 states, achha, which are the two kinds of expenditure which we know in the budget? Which are the two kinds of expenditure? Revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. Do you agree? Article 112. So this differentiation, so if you anyone you would like to ask me why are we differentiating between this revenue and capital, this is also mentioned in the article, but the only thing is they do not mention capital expenditure. They mention कि you have to divide your total expenses in revenue and others. So that others are capital expenditure, but they do not mention the term capital. They do not mention the term budget. The article mentions annual financial statement. Article mentions that you have to divide your expenses between revenue and others. Article does not mention about dividing receipts, but we divide receipts because we have to analyze it. Okay? Revenue receipts, capital receipts, article doesn't mention. This was for central budget and state budgets. For third tier panchayat budgets also, there are articles 243W, 243P, 243O, 243N. All of these are the articles which mention about the budget and the finance commission and all of these things. You please try to read about them along with your lectures. Whenever polity lectures will continue, you have to read and you have to consciously link this with that. Okay? You have to link this. When you read polity, center, state, financial relations, maybe you can ask me doubts from that also whenever that lecture happens, so that I'll be able to explain in a much better manner. But when we do taxation chapter, we are going to speak about it thoda sa anyways, right? ठीक है. Okay. Very interesting topic again coming up. Very important topic coming up again. So we were looking for ways to finance budget. कहाँ गया? We were looking for ways to finance a deficit. So government can either borrow externally. Okay? So can I say, so by the way, this will all add to government debt, yes or no? We spoke about debt and this how it all adds every year to the debt. Okay? So this will all add to debt. Okay? Let us talk about printing money first. Government calls RBI. Government says I am running a deficit of 6.8%. RBI says I don't understand 6.8%. Tell me the final amount. Government says कि sir 15 lakh crores we need. RBI says कि ठीक है, we'll print money, we'll keep it in suitcase. लेके जाओ, ले लो, take it. Next year, let's say RBI doesn't have money or RBI cannot do it. RBI says कि out of 15 lakh, 13 lakh I'll give, 2 lakhs you have to arrange. लेके जाओ, take it. ठीक है? This resulted in recklessness of the government. Does it make sense? This resulted in recklessness. Government then was bindas. Run deficit. Na RBI is there to print currency. Do you realize? This resulted in government becoming bindas. This resulted in government becoming shameless. This resulted in government becoming careless. Right? RBI is there. It will keep on printing money. Right? And hence, in 2006, this arrangement of printing currency to finance deficit was closed down in a very, very historic agreement between RBI and government in 2006. Printing money for the purpose of financing deficit. See, RBI prints money today also. You get these new notes, fancy yellow, green color 20 rupees note and all of that. Who prints that? RBI prints it. Okay? But printing of money for financing deficits was shut down as a part of an agreement between RBI and government in 2006. Right? Now tell me, what is deficit financing? What is deficit financing? Running a deficit to finance. Okay? Now, let us say in our example, 15 lakh crore was the requirement. Yes or no? 15 lakh crore was the requirement. Imagine we are in pre-2006 era, which means RBI will give money to the government. So there are two scenarios here. Either RBI can give pura 15 lakh rupees as currency, or RBI can give, let's say, 13 lakhs and 2 lakhs it tells government to arrange on your own. Now, pay attention. This does not happen today because 2006 it got shut down, but we need to know as a concept, because tomorrow you never know, a new agreement is signed कि this is revived. This was going on till 2006 for a reason. No? They must be having some reasons. right? So that part of the deficit, that part, either complete or part, that part of the deficit which is financed by RBI printing currency, which is financed by RBI printing currency, that part of the deficit which is financed by RBI printing currency, it might be full or partial, is known as monetized deficit. Is known as monetized deficit. See, English, monetized. Monetization means to convert to money. So that part of deficit which RBI has supplied money for is known as monetized deficit. Now tell me, how much is the fiscal deficit in our example? 15 lakh crores. How much is the monetized deficit in this case? 15 lakh crores. How much is the monetized deficit in this case? 13 lakh crores. How much is the unmonetized deficit in this case? 0. How much is the unmonetized deficit in this case? 2 lakh crores. Do you agree with this? Do not confuse. I see many students getting confused between deficit financing and monetized deficit. Monetized deficit is something completely different. Monetized deficit is what? Monetized deficit is that part of the deficit which is financed by RBI printing currency. Yes or no? That is monetized deficit. What is deficit financing? It's a principle or is an economic, you can say it's a style or branch of economics which says that you have to run deficits to finance. It's a policy, right? This is what? This was an arrangement between RBI and which was struck down in 2006. So from 2006, RBI does not print currency to finance government deficit. RBI says, take loan from me, but I will not print currency. Loan you can take from RBI. RBI acts as a banker's government. Borrowing to hai na, borrowing internal banks. RBI also falls under banks. RBI says, take loan, but don't ask me to give you money for free by printing currency. That was stopped. ठीक है, 2006. So far so good, very easy. ठीक है, monetized deficit, deficit financing, fiscal stimulus, fiscal consolidation, all of these are very, very important terms. All of these have to be read carefully, have to be understood in depth, and that is what we are trying to do here. ठीक है, this is done. Now right now, before going ahead, I need to explain you one process which happens, which we'll cover in depth in monetary policy and RBI also, but here it is very important to understand this. This is government, this is RBI, okay? Government goes to RBI to ask for currency. Will RBI say yes? No, because it has been stopped. Okay? Government says, but I need money. RBI says, borrow from me. I will give you loan. You pay me interest. No problem. I have money, which is fine, which is allowed. Yes or no? Now, whenever government has to raise money, always remember, whenever government has to raise money, before that, let me simplify it. If you want money from your friend, if you are in dire need of money, if you want money from your friend, or if you want money from, let's say, you borrow money from me, chalo, suppose, okay? So you will come to me and you will ask me, sir, I need money. I will ask you why and all of that, and I will give you money. But before giving you money, what will I ask you? Why you need it? What will I ask you? You will not run away na, with my money. What will I ask you? How will you able to be repay? Yes or no? So then I see that you are very shady. I see that you are not giving confident answers. I see that you will run away. ये भाग जाएगा, you know in फिर हेरा फेरी परेश रावल says ये भाग जाएगा, ठीक है, right? So in that car when they are kidnapped, ये भाग जाएगा, इस पे भरोसा नहीं है, right? When Sunil Shetty also goes behind Akshay Kumar, that scene I'm talking about, right? So what I say that if I find that you are doing some shady business, I will ask, sign on a piece of paper and give me that you have taken loan from me and you will repay it. This much is the interest, this much is the EMI. Yes or no? Yes or no? I will take that paper from you. Yes. So I have that paper on you. I have your sign on it. So that tomorrow if you run away, I can go to court, I can go to banks and I can enforce this paper and then we can catch you if you go. This will have the loan amount. Yes or no? Let's say 10,000 rupees. It will also have the interest amount which you are supposed to pay. Let's say you are going to pay me 50 rupees interest. It will also have the tenure of the loan. Let's say you have taken the loan for 20 years. Yes or no? Do you agree that this paper is compulsory, or this, not compulsory, but this paper is required for better financial sense? Yes or no? Right? Okay. This paper is called as a bond. Have you heard the word bond? Corporate bond, government bonds. This paper is called as a bond. Bond shows the amount which is raised or amount which is taken as loan. Bond shows the repayment terms. Bond shows the rate of interest. Bond shows the maturity. After 20 years, till 20 years you can enjoy the loan. And bond also shows who is raising the loan, who is not raised, from whom the loan is raised. Okay? If government is raising loan, government goes to RBI, I need loans. Okay? Government, RBI will tell you tomorrow you will run away. Tomorrow you will be in more debt. Tomorrow you will be in more deficit. How will I get my money? Government says take this paper. I am signing this paper. I am giving it to you. That I am writing in that paper. I, Government of India, I pledge that I promise to pay RBI 10 lakh crore rupees in the 20 years time, and also every year I will pay 1 lakh crore rupees as interest. This is what government signs and gives to RBI. Now RBI is happy because RBI has a legal document. Okay? So bonds which are issued by government are called government bonds. Similarly, Reliance Communications, if it needs money from some bank or from some people, it will also issue a bond. Same thing would be written. I am taking money on loan. I want it for my business purposes. I will repay it to you in so and so time. Okay? Then it becomes a corporate bond because it is issued by corporate. Whoever is issuing the bond, uska bond ho jata hai. So far so good. Is it simple? We'll discuss this in markets chapter in depth. What are the types of bonds? Who issues? What is? Okay. Not required now. But did you understand this concept? If suppose I take money from you and you don't know my address, you don't know my what would I do, you don't know whether I will run away or not, you will ask me to sign a piece of paper which says that I have taken money from you, I will repay it. Pura terms and conditions would be mentioned. Yes or no? Correct? When you take loan from a bank, does bank make you sign lot of documents? Yes, bank does. Loan agreement bolte na usko. It is also in the nature of bond. So this is a bond. Bond shows who has raised money, how much money is raised as loan or borrowing, what is the interest, how much would be the interest payment, monthly, yearly, and when will the repayment be done. Okay? So government will say I will repay after 20 years. RBI is happy. RBI is getting interest for 20 years. After 20 years, RBI will ask government, please repay. If government does not repay, RBI will go to court, show that paper, see this. He had taken loan from me 20 years ago and now he is not paying. Court will say yes, it is valid. Government has to pay. Yes or no, it is a financial security. This is a bond. Barabar hai? Now, we spoke about currency. Okay? One more thing, one small teeny tiny thing. Government bonds are of various types. The most common, just remember the name now. You don't have, I am trying consciously not to go into deep because this is not the topic for bonds. When government issues bonds, they are called as treasury bills. Just know the name for one line. I am doing all this teaching. One line I have to tell you. Also short form में T-bills. Okay? These are issued by government. Right? So this is nothing but a piece of paper which will show that government has borrowed money from banks or from RBI in this case. Right? I told you in 2006 something happened. What happened? Ki currency direct monetization was stopped. Okay? Before that, what used to happen is currency was still going on. Before that, what used to happen is a similar arrangement was in place. Ki how much will be the deficit? How much will be the deficit? RBI will automatically lend money and take these bonds. Are you getting it? Deficit is 10 lakh crores. Forget about currency printing, cash printing now. deficit is 10 lakh crores, the system was कि RBI will automatically lend money to government. RBI does not have a discretion here. RBI will automatically lend money to the government. Government will give this paper sign करके, no doubt about it. ठीक है? But RBI said कि but I should have an option ना whether to give you money or not give you money. Tomorrow you will ask 1 lakh crores. As per the agreement I have to give you. You are giving me documents, no doubt, which is for 10 year, 15 year, 20 year repayment time. I have that security. But tomorrow if I know that you are not worth giving money to, I should be able to say no, yes or no. ठीक है? So earlier there was an arrangement कि RBI will automatically forward money to the government and take these bonds. Is this wrong? Yes or no? It is wrong. Why? Because RBI is ultimately a bank. It should also have freedom to decide whether to lend money to the government or not lend money to. ठीक है? So this agreement, do you know the English word ad hoc? This is an English word. Ad hoc. Ad hoc means random. Ad hoc means no structure, no, not planned, unplanned. Unplanned, random. ठीक है? Ad hoc, random. So random means what? As per the deficit, RBI will lend money without RBI having any opinion. RBI should have an opinion whether to lend money or not. So there was an arrangement of RBI lending money to government and taking these in return, sign करके randomly as per the deficit. Randomly as per the deficit. Today deficit 100 crores. RBI will take 100 crores worth of signed papers. RBI will give money. Tomorrow deficit is 1 lakh crores. Same thing. RBI doesn't have an option. ठीक है? That arrangement of randomly giving money to the government for the purpose of filling in deficits was discontinued in 1997. Ad hoc T-bill, treasury bill was discontinued in 1997. RBI said enough is enough, बस हो गया, ठीक है? Because see, look at it from the government's angle. Government knows कि if I run a deficit, I can call up RBI. I can either ask for printing fresh currency, or I can ask RBI कि give me loan. I will repay afterwards. Don't worry. And you don't have an option in saying, or you don't have an option for saying no. ऐसा बोल दिया. This is what was told. Isn't it? Getting it? ठीक है? So this arrangement was also eliminated in 1997. The printing currency arrangement was also eliminated in 2006. Now what is the situation, sir? Sir, tell us now what is the situation. Now the situation is that RBI has the freedom whether to. This was gone. 1997 में ad hoc treasury bills was also gone. This was gone in 2006. ठीक है? This was gone. Now government is left with this option only. Either RBI can borrow externally, RBI can borrow internally. So banks include RBI. I should mention banks include RBI and individuals also. ठीक है? Now coming to the option which is actually viable for the government. How to finance the fiscal deficit? From where to borrow? So government makes a conscious choice of finding the right balance between external and internal. See, sometimes external ka rate of interest is lower. Sometimes. So if you go to bank HDFC and if you go to Axis Bank, you go to HDFC, you ask for a home loan, they tell you ki sir, we will take 6.5% interest. You go to Axis Bank, they say ki sir, we will take 6.1% interest. You might be inclined to go to Axis Bank, yes or no? See, the interest difference is small, but always remember that the principal amount is huge. If it is 1 crore, then uska 6.5% is also a big amount. Okay? So then sometimes when government sees the opportunity to raise funds from outside India, it does. Do you agree with this? It does. It is normal borrowing hai. Now coming to internal. Internal it can go to banks, it can go to individuals. Okay? So whenever you hear in news or read in news that government is issuing new treasury bills, government is issuing new bonds, it is nothing but it is asking for banks and individuals to give me money and take these bonds. Bonds are nothing but signed papers. The government has already signed them and kept. In a room, government has signed कि जिसके पास भी ये paper होगा, whoever will have this paper, that person will give me money and I will pay him back after 10 years. ठीक है, right? So for example, I need a lot of money. Let's say I need a lot of money. There are 60 students. So I will draw a common paper. I will leave the name blank and I will have a common language. Ki I have taken money from Mr. Miss Dash of rupees 1 lakh. I will pay 10% interest. I have taken the money for 5 years and I will sign and keep. So whoever of you 60 people are interested in giving me money, you come, you give me money. I will write your name and I will give you that paper. I will tell you bring it after 5 years. I will give you your money back. Yes or no? Same thing government does. Government prints these treasury bills and government keeps it with itself. So whenever government wants money, it issues these treasury bills. Ki, Aao, give me money, take this bill. Give me money, take this paper. Give me money, take this paper. And whatever is written on the paper, that will be followed. Let's say after 10 years, when loan is matured, you go back to the government and you say, ki, sir, take your paper, give me my money back. Government gives you your money back, done. Or government gives you a new paper instead of that for further 10 years. जिस पे rate of interest is higher. You are happy with that also. ठीक है? So whenever we say government is borrowing, उसका fancy version of saying it that government is borrowing money, a fancy version of saying it is government is issuing treasury bills. Do you know the meaning of government issuing treasury bills? Nothing but government is begging for money. Simple. It is nothing but government is, asking for money. ठीक है, enjoying? We are at a very high level of discussion now. We have left GDP and all way below us. We are now flying high. ठीक है? So when you read government wants to issue new treasury bills, it means nothing but government wants money. So the question when this budget was released, and how much was the fiscal deficit of last year? 9.5%. If you remember, this year it is 6.8. 9.5%. The question was from where you will get 9.5% of your GDP. Who will give you this much money? So then government said ki we are out of that 9.5%. Let's say 4% of GDP worth of treasury bills are being issued, which means government is borrowing 4% from issue of treasury bills. ठीक है? So now if I tell you उसका उल्टा side, if I tell you bank, look at the language. If I tell you bank has purchased treasury bills worth 100 crores, what does it mean? Bank has purchased treasury bill. Let's say HDFC or SBI Bank has purchased treasury bills worth of 100 crore rupees. What does it mean? That SBI has given 100 crores to the government and government has given a treasury bill to the bank which will say that ki after so many number of years, this much interest you will get, this much repayment will be done. Yes or no? Do you agree? Okay? So when I told you that government also borrows from individuals, it means that you can also purchase a treasury bill. When you purchase a treasury bill, you give money for it and that money goes to the government. Government uses that money to finance its deficit. After 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever is the maturity, you go back to the government, you give your bill back, you give your bill and you take your money back from the government. Okay? It is nothing but a loan. It is nothing but a debt. Samjha? This entire discussion for only one line that earlier RBI had a mechanism with government of unlimited treasury bills. Now in 1997 it was cut down and in 2006 currency was also cut down. ठीक है? समझा? Did you agree? Do you agree with this? Right? Now one more layer I am adding to it. Government does not sell treasury bills on its own. Government sells through RBI. RBI is the agent of the government. Okay? Just imagine you selling your car through an agent. Okay? Now RBI might buy the car for himself also because he can also be a customer. Your agent says, sir, why are you selling it? I will buy it. I need it. Right? Same thing happens. RBI asks banks and individuals to buy treasury bills from the government as an agent. RBI buys treasury bills from the government directly as a customer also. Which means RBI also finances government deficit. The only thing is now it is discretionary. Now RBI knows how much to finance and not. Earlier it was ad hoc. Earlier it was random. It was compulsory. Do you agree with this? Do you understand this? It's very important. We are at the crux of economics here. See, chapters like inflation and all of these are very peripheral chapters. They are school level chapters. You know what to do when inflation happens. You know what not to do when inflation happens. But this analysis is so important that this will actually help you get to the core of economics. We are at the core of economics here. External, internal, banks, individuals. ठीक है? Done? Okay. Now let me ask you something. You read in newspaper, RBI wants to sell treasury bills worth 200 crores. RBI wants to sell treasury bills worth 200 crores. What does it mean? It means that RBI already has 200 crores worth of treasury bills and RBI wants to sell it. See, I'll tell you one very, forget it. We'll if I go in that chapter, then we'll lose track of this. So I'll keep that discussion for later. Let us come back. External, internal, banks, including RBI and individuals. Okay? Next. Now again the question was, what was the question? What was the principal question is how much fiscal deficit? Okay, how do we finance? We came to know. How does this thing government finances? How does it work? That we know. Right? Some very small concept which you need to know. Whatever fiscal deficit we know or we spoke about, that is known as gross fiscal deficit. So to arrive at net, we should reduce something, yes or no? Gross minus something is net. If I tell you gross fiscal deficit is the borrowing, do you agree with this? Fiscal deficit is the borrowing of the government, that much government will borrow. So if I tell you gross fiscal deficit, if it is the borrowing, then what is net fiscal deficit? What do you think? So if government has to borrow 70 lakh crores, that is the gross fiscal deficit. Abhi usme se, let's say government has already given some loan to some other country. So that you will reduce and you will get net fiscal deficit. It's a very small and minute concept. Gross fiscal deficit minus lending by government, not to government, lending by government is equal to net fiscal deficit. Okay, done? Achha. Let us discuss this further. This is very interesting, which we spoke about here. Government going to world market to borrow money. Government looking in India to borrow money from banks or from individuals, right? Who is giving money here? Who is giving money? Banks and individuals are giving money to the government, yes or no? So let us say, who are the suppliers of money here? The suppliers of money are banks and individuals. Means everyone who is supplying money is here. Now again, this is a very important topic. This is something very high level which I am going to talk about. These lectures will be very heavy. The next lecture will also be heavy. Uske baad also will be heavy. And in the end, we'll end on a very lighter note and then we'll transition to agriculture. Agriculture is anyways very light. I mean, you don't even need to properly prepare agriculture. It is very easy to prepare agriculture. But this is something where you will require my intervention, my help. So these are the suppliers of money. Okay? These have money. Who is coming? These have money. Who is coming to borrow? In our case, who is coming to borrow? Government. Government wants to finance fiscal deficit, yes or no? Government is coming here and government is asking to borrow money. Okay? Do you think they have unlimited money? Is money unlimited? Do you think banks and individuals have unlimited money? See, there is always a limited supply of money in the economy. Money flows. You remember, money flows from firm to household, from household to firm. But the quantity is limited. You can increase money supply by printing fresh currency, we will see that in money chapter, money supply chapter, how to do that, or if to do that, when to do that. Okay, but pay attention here. If you are going to a market, you see these are sellers selling money. Yes or no? These are selling money. Okay, what is the cost of money? What do you think? If you are going to a bank to buy money, just equate money with mango now. If you go to bank to buy mango, you have to pay some price. Okay. Similarly, if you go to bank to buy money, you are taking loan, which means you are buying money. What will you have to pay? Interest. Yes or no? Will you pay interest on money which you bought from the bank? Yes or no? When you go to the bank, you will say ki I need loan. Bank will give you 20 lakh rupees ka briefcase. Take loan, enjoy. You go home and you say, mummy, see, I bought money from bank. Okay? So at what cost did you get that money? Interest. Bank will give you money, bank will loan you money, bank will lend you money only when you are ready to pay interest. Yes or no? Okay. Coming to mango example. When will the seller increase the price of mangoes? What do you think? When demand increases. Today you are demanding 1 dozen. Tomorrow if you demand 10 dozen, seller will increase his price because he knows he can get high price. Okay? Similarly, today you went to the bank. There was no one in the bank. Nobody. You asked bank, I need 20 lakh rupees. Bank told 7% interest pe milega. You will get at 7%, which means you have to pay 7% interest in EMI. Okay? Tomorrow you went to the bank and you saw that there is line on all the counters. Everyone is asking for loan. Everyone is asking for money. Do you think you will get loan at 7% or higher or lower? What do you think? Do you think after standing in line when everyone is asking for money, you reach the counter and you say, ki, sir, I took loan from you yesterday. I need more loan. See, you might be very financially sound. Bank is having faith in you, but bank will not give you at 7%. You ask, why, sir? Yesterday you gave 7% at 7%. Bank will say, sir, yesterday I had no customer. Yesterday I was selling money. I had no customer. Mango wala says, sir, yesterday nobody was buying mango from me, so I reduced my price. Today everyone is buying mango from me, so I will increase my price from 300 rupees per dozen to 500 rupees per dozen. Bank wala is saying, sir, yesterday nobody was asking loan from me. Today everyone is asking loan from me. I have an opportunity of earning higher profit, so I have increased my loan rate to 9%. Yes or no? Do you agree with this or not? Okay? Money provided by the banks or loan provided by the banks is just like any other commodity, demand supply. I told you in the first lecture itself, we'll come back to demand supply occasionally, and we have come back to demand supply. In this case, always remember, the cost of money is interest. Interest is the cost which you pay for acquiring money, for loaning money. Yes or no? Okay? So now you are paying interest at 7%, now you are paying at 9%. Let's say third day, again nobody comes. What will bank do to make it more attractive? Bank will reduce it again to 7%. Yes or no? So that people are more attracted and people come. Equate it with anything. Today you want to buy a phone. If the price reduces, you will buy it. If the price increases, you might not buy it. Yes or no? Chalo. Now coming to our example. Government came to bank and government wants money. Do you think government is the only customer of the bank who wants money? There are people like us. There are people like Reliance who is waiting for money. There are people like, there are conglomerates like Tata who is going to the bank for money. Okay? We are not talking about one bank here. We are talking about all the banks in the economy, all the borrowers in the economy. It is one big unit. Okay? Tata is waiting, government state governments are waiting. Waiting for money, right? Now, very important. Very, very, very important. Now tell me, they don't have unlimited money. They have a limited supply. If more and more people start coming in, what will happen to the interest rate? Will it increase or will it decrease? It will increase. It will grow up because bank is saying, I have so many customers for my money. I will sell at high price. Yes or no? Chalo. Now we'll take the example of amounts. Let's say banks are having, on that day, 100 crores to lend. 100 crores banks can give to these customers. Whoever comes, whatever money they ask, bank will give. If nobody is asking money, this 100 crore would be available at a very low rate of interest. Do you agree? Because nobody is asking for it. Now they are asking, banks realize ki theek hai, demand is picking up. Let's say government, Reliance, Tata, state governments, they all come together and total they demand 20 crore rupees. Bank will not increase interest because only 20 crores is being sold. When it comes to, so if a mango wala is having lot of mangoes, if you buy and you go and buy 2 mangoes, he will not increase the price. Then that is not actual demand. Actual demand comes when more than 50, 60, 70 crores is being asked. Then bank will realize, oh, I have very less amount of money left, so I will sell it at a higher price. Imagine you go to a mango wala and he has only 1 crate left and that is of a very good quality. He will demand a higher price from you because he has sold all of them. If you demand 1 mango out of 100 mangoes, he will not do anything. Okay? Let's forget government for 1 second. RIL, Tata, state governments are enjoying now. Government releases budget. Government says that I have to borrow 9.5% of my fiscal deficit now, which translates to, let's say it translates to 70 crore rupees. In our example, let's say government needs 70 crore rupees. Government comes in with 2 big briefcases, empty briefcases to carry the money. Government demands, I need 70 crores. Yes or no? Okay? Government takes 70 crores. How much is remaining? Government took 70 crores. How much is remaining for others? 30 crores. Now what do you think? This 30 would be cheaper than 100, this 100, or this 30 would be expensive than this 100? Sorry, 70. This 30 would be cheaper than this 70 or expensive than 70? It would be expensive. Why? Because these are the last few pieces remaining. Okay? Hurry, grab them fast, right? Now, let us say out of this state government, one is a small state, let's say Tripura. Okay? So let us say earlier this 100 crore was available at 8% interest, but after government came in and took 70 crores away at 8%, rest 30 crores ke liye bank started demanding 12% because we know that it will be expensive. Tripura government cannot afford loan at 12%. It cannot service the interest. It goes back. Okay? It goes back. Right? Tata had made calculations regarding 8%. Now Tata says ki 12% is too costly for me. Now I will not borrow. Tata goes back. Are you seeing where I am going? Okay? There are people like you and me, we individuals, we aspire to buy a house loan, we aspire to buy a car. We also go back because 8 से 12 हुआ, it is too costly. We say कि बाद में देख लेंगे. You know, again when rates might come down, we will see. Right? Now, what do you think is the negative effect of Tata not getting money? What do you think is the negative effect of Tata not getting money? What do you think is the negative effect of Tata not getting money? Tata wanted money for some purpose, not for time pass. Tata wanted money for a new factory. Tata wanted money for some new plant. Do you remember this equation? Do you remember this? Okay? Tata wanted money for I, yes or no? You did not give. You did not get. What do you think small state governments wanted money for G? Did not get. What about you and me, small individuals like us? We wanted money for C. We did not get. Money became costly. Money became limited. Let's say I wanted 40 crores, but it is not there now. 30 crores is only remaining now. Okay? What happened? We were forming a crowd at the bank. Government came with 2 big briefcases, took the money and went. Yes or no? Government just pushed us away and took the money and went. Barabar hai? We have left. We went out of the bank. Ki chalo nahi milega, we will not get. This phenomena, interesting, very interesting. This phenomena of government borrowing such huge amounts, which result in increase of interest rate. Are you getting it? Results in increase of interest rate, which causes unavailability or costlier availability of funds to other private parties. In this case, state government bhi hai, but to other private parties. Again, just try to understand, write it afterwards. This phenomena where government, due to huge borrowing requirement of the government, the rate increases, which causes unavailability or costlier availability of funds to other private parties, and because of which they cannot spend or they do not have access to funds and they cannot spend on the economy. This phenomena, due to government action, due to government heavy borrowing or any other government action which causes less availability of money at higher cost to other private individuals, is called as crowding out. Crowding out. This is called as crowding out, which means just imagine there is a crowd, one big guy comes and disperses all the crowd. Crowding out. Crowding khatam, bahar, out of the bank. Okay? Is crowding out good or bad? Very bad for the economy. Why? Because government might not use this 70 crores effectively. Always remember, government has a lot of obligations, lot of inefficiency, lot of corruption. Government might not use this 70 crore effectively. Had this 70 crore gone to Tata or Reliance, they might have used efficiently. Might have. We cannot say, but might have. But definitely we know that weight of C and I is much more than weight of G. So even if government is spending 70, this is going down, na? And this has a higher weight. So this is more important than G. This is as a last resort, but you are becoming primary here. You don't have to become primary. Okay? You have to come in the end. When everyone is sinking, you have to come. Keynes said. But here, big bully is government only. This is crowding out. Okay? Now tell me, true or false? A lower fiscal deficit results in crowding out. True or false? A lower fiscal deficit results in crowding out. True or false? A lower fiscal deficit results in crowding out. It is absolutely false. Why? Lower fiscal deficit will result in lower borrowing by the government, which will keep more money available for others, which might not push interest rates up, and everyone will be happy. C plus I will be saved. Yes or no? Higher fiscal deficit always leads to crowding out because money is limited. Did you understand crowding out? Very important term. Okay? In the next lecture, I will show you an extract of economic survey also which speaks about crowding out. Then we'll gauge whether we understand or not. Crowding out. Simple to understand, crowding out. Now let's say tomorrow, this is day 1, finished. Next day, government announced creation of 10 new bridges. Okay? Government announced creation of 10 new bridges. What will happen? What will happen? It will create an employment for all the workers on the bridge. It will create incentives for cement manufacturers, steel manufacturers, aluminium manufacturers to produce more, right? It will get banks new customers now, because banks were sitting idle. Now cement manufacturers coming, sir, give me loan, and cement manufacturing is now remunerative because they are purchasing. Architects will get jobs, right? So who is causing all this? Government, because government has announced one thing, that it will construct 10 new bridges, and that is why this is happening. So in the first case, we saw government action causing disadvantage to others. In the second case, we are seeing government action causing a lot of positive effects to others. Yes or no? This is known as crowding in. This is known as crowding in. Positive action by the government, positive multiplier action. Multiplier is the word which we saw. Positive multiplier action by the government causes crowding in, and negative multiplier action is known as crowding out. This is the key difference between crowding out and crowding in. Do not be confused, and you should use these all words which I have told you. You should use these words in your answers. You know, excessive. Now I'll tell you one sentence. You just listen to this. Excessive focus on growth. Excessive focus on growth without having any considerations for reducing fiscal deficit. Excessive focus on growth without having any consideration for reducing fiscal deficit might lead to crowding out and cause a negative impact on the economy. बराबर है? This is how articles are written in newspapers and this is the meaning of this. ठीक है, growth versus inflation debate, growth versus fiscal deficit debate, all of these are issues which we need to understand. There is no one right answer to all these things. You know, there has to be a balance between these things. Did you understand crowding out and crowding in? These are very important concepts. The 4 concepts which I taught you today, the most important ones: fiscal stimulus, fiscal consolidation, crowding out, crowding in. These are very important. Always remember fiscal stimulus and fiscal consolidation, because when we do monetary policy, I will tell you the same concepts with different names because they are done by RBI. So when government does it, it is called as fiscal consolidation and fiscal stimulus. When RBI does it, it will be called something else, but the nature is same. The types of the effect and the types of tools which are used are similar. So we'll speak about that in monetary policy. Point being, I need you to remember lecture 1 till the lecture which we do. Every time you need to be very well and thorough with all the lectures which we are doing. You will not be able to appreciate monetary policy unless you appreciate fiscal policy, because see, here we speak about borrowing, yes or no? In monetary policy, we'll speak from bank's angle. How much they are lending, how to lend, how to set interest rates and how they do that, all of that. Okay? Economy is very, very, very interrelated. All of them are very closely interlinked with each other. Samjha? Okay, crowding out is okay, crowding in is okay. We'll move on to the next thing. We still haven't answered this question. How much? We don't know, na? 3%, 2%, how much? We still haven't answered this question, right? So earlier I told you, when was ad hoc treasury bill system abolished? Which year? 1997. When was cash monetization abolished? 2006, right? Earlier, so this was abolished, which means the means of borrowing was abolished, but that did not put any restriction on the amount of fiscal deficit, which means government called RBI, print currency. RBI said ki, no sir, we are not allowed to do it. Government said fine. Government called up some other country outside India and it is giving him money. It is giving government money. Government is happy again. RBI से नहीं मिला तो कहीं और से मिल गया. You know, government did not get money from RBI in the form of treasury bills or currency notes. It got from somewhere else, right? But this was also not good, because again government started becoming reckless. Again government started running high fiscal deficits. Government said ki, RBI is not giving, forget it. We'll ask from some other bank. We'll ask from people. We'll ask from other countries. Forget about crowding out. We'll ask from, still we'll ask a lot of money from people. Okay? In 2003, a historic legislation was passed in the financial sphere, economic sphere. Historic legislation was passed. That act or that legislation puts restriction on the amount of fiscal deficit. Just imagine, that act puts restriction on the amount of fiscal deficit. Government cannot go beyond this limit. I hope you know separation of powers: legislature, executive and judiciary. So legislature, which means our representatives are legislatures, executives are one who run day-to-day government. So executives are setting this fiscal deficit figure. Executives were getting very lazy. Legislature passed a bill and said, you executives, you are becoming very lazy. You are becoming, you have a very lethargic approach to fiscal deficit. You are keeping on borrowing. What will happen 10 years afterwards when you have to repay all these loans? Who will repay? You will not be in government, someone else will be, but they will have to suffer. So legislature passed a bill. Bill was passed. It became an act in 2003 which put limits on fiscal deficit. Just imagine. Iske upar not allowed at all. Out of let's say above 5%, you are not allowed to go. Which means what? If fiscal deficit is limited, then your total expenditure also becomes constrained. You can increase revenue, no doubt. So the more you increase revenue, the more you can spend, because then you are within the fiscal deficit gap. But if you are not able to increase revenue, you have to reduce your expense also. Yes or no? This legislature also put limits on revenue deficit. This legislature also put effects on fiscal deficit, revenue deficit, primary deficit. All of these were restrictions. Government, you cannot go beyond this. This legislature is known as, we know today as the FRBM Act 2003. FRBM Act 2003. Sir, what about the full form? The full form is, just notice the words, just notice the English. You will understand why this full form makes sense. Fiscal responsibility, behave responsibly, and budgetary Management Act 2003. Does the name make sense? Fiscal responsibility and budgetary management. You have to be fiscally responsible, and how to manage your budget is mentioned in the Act. FRBM Act, Fiscal Responsibility and Budgetary Management Act 2003. Very important, most important legislation from budgeting point of view. Bear in mind, we are covering point number 1 of syllabus and point number 3 of syllabus simultaneously. Everything that we do falls under some point of, or some part of the syllabus, because otherwise we will not cover it. We have seen 99.9% of the questions come from the 4 corners of the syllabus, or within the 4 walls of the syllabus. Fiscal Responsibility and Budgetary Management Act 2003 was brought in, which put restrictions on fiscal deficit, which said ki, you should not go beyond this value, you should not go beyond this value. Okay? This act was further amended in 2012. If you remember, if you have revised, and in 2013 a question was asked on FRBM. So in 2012 this act was amended in 2012, where revenue deficit as a target was abolished. You don't need to target revenue deficit, just target fiscal deficit, simple enough. Okay? Now, very important, fiscal deficit has 5 primary targets. Fiscal deficit, four. Fiscal deficit has 4 primary targets, which means fiscal deficit tracks 4 things. You don't have to restrict them necessarily, but you have to track 4 things. FRBM Act says that 4 targets you have to measure, or you have to take care of 4 targets. What do you think is the first target? What do you think is the first target? Fiscal deficit. Simple. Fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP. That is what we have been doing. So these are the 4 targets mentioned under FRBM. Bear in mind that the limits are set for only fiscal deficit. The limits are not set. They were set, but they are abolished. But still, tracking is done for these 4 targets. What do you think is the second target? Revenue deficit as a percentage of GDP. Yes or no? What is the third target? See, these are talking about deficits, and bear in mind that targets or limits are set only for fiscal deficit. Other than that, they are only tracked. Third target is tax revenue, total tax revenue as a percentage of GDP. Total tax revenue as a percentage of GDP. Tax revenue as a percentage of GDP. Okay? And fourth, I want to write it in simple terms, but first I'll explain what I'm going to write. What do you mean by liability? Burden. Okay? Is debt a kind of liability? Yes, debt is a kind of liability. So without going further into details, just for the sake of knowing, I will write the fourth target as total outstanding liabilities of the government. Outstanding liabilities, nothing but in basic terms it is debt. It is debt, but fancy term, outstanding liabilities again as a percentage of GDP. What do you think limits are required for, or limits are set for which of the following? Limits are set only for the first part, which is fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP. Do you agree with this? This is mentioned in the FRBM Act. Why is this required? Because to avoid governments from being reckless. See, simple logic, governments are in power for 5 years, right? They want to show people that we are constructing bridges, we are giving so much of subsidies, we are raising defense expense. Let's say they borrow a lot of debt in those 5 years, and next 5 years they lose. The next government which will come in, they will have to face so much of issues. They will have to cut down expenses because already extra expenses are done. They will have to cut down. And then what will people think? Arey, that government built 100 bridges. This government is not building 100 bridges. But this government is not able to because that government built more bridges than what was required, or then more than what was the capacity. Are you understanding? Okay? This is why, and people don't understand all this. Who will understand FRBM and all? Okay? That is why this act was brought in, to say ki irrespective of the government, irrespective of the party, you cannot go beyond XYZ number of XYZ amount of debt. Okay? So pay attention. The older target was, and we are targeting only, like we are placing limit only this. The older target was 3% fiscal deficit. 3% fiscal deficit by 2020. Okay? This was the old target. Now, why am I telling it as an old target? What do you think? Why is it an old target? Because of pandemic, we cannot adhere to this target. Do you agree? Have you seen 9.5% fiscal deficit in the budget for that year? We have seen 9.5%. Then we also saw for the current year 6.8%. Okay? This is so less. But we were on the track, if you remember. 4.6 to 3.5 we had gone, if you remember, in that budget wala chart. And then we went to 9.5 and then we came to 6.8. Yes, we were on the track. But since pandemic happened, this target could not be achieved. Now forget pandemic for a while. FRBM Act says that if you cannot achieve this target, you have to give an explanation. Forget pandemic. FRBM Act says if you are not able to achieve this target by this time, obviously these targets are changed periodically. So 10 years ago the targets were set for 2012, then 15, then 18. So by 20 this was the final target before pandemic happened. Okay? So there are a few there are a few situations where you can take a relaxation of 0.5%. Please pay attention to the words which I am using, where you can take a relaxation, which means if FRBM Act mandated limiting fiscal deficit to 3% by 2020, and if you are not achieving 3%, then it is okay, so far as it does not exceed plus 0.5%, which means 3.5% ke upar you can never go. You have to limit to 3%, but due to some reason, some things happened, we are giving you a discount, we are giving you a relaxation. So 3.5% was the permissible amount, and this is also not every time. This 0.5% facility is not given to you free of cost or essay freely. Otherwise, target would have been 3.5, na? But they do this, and this relaxation was availed by our finance minister during the year 1920. So our 1920 fiscal deficit was actually 3.5%. It did not achieve 3%, but it achieved this relaxation ke saath wala percentage. Okay? Now this relaxation in FRBM terms is called as an escape clause. I hope you can appreciate the English. Escape clause. You can escape the limit set by, but only by 0.5%, which means you have to limit yourself to 3.5% of fiscal deficit. So how much ever is your GDP, uska 3.5% say more you cannot have a fiscal deficit. And I told you, first fiscal deficit is set, then accordingly revenue targets and expenditures are set. So if fiscal deficit is 3.5%, if you expect GDP to be, let's say 100 rupees, then the gap between your expense and revenue has to be equal to or less than 3.5 rupees. Escape clause. Okay, you can write this down, you can write all these things down. Escape clause, these terms are very important, and be aware that we are talking about pre-COVID-19 now. I will come to COVID-19, but we are yet to reach COVID. We are only talking about pre-COVID-19. I am talking about 31st March 2020. So 31st March 2020 mein COVID had just begun, but the year had ended, financial year. So we had achieved 3.5% by triggering escape clause. Initially we were mandated 3%, but we had triggered escape clause. Now when to trigger escape clause? Is this available freely every year? No, because this would have been here then. ठीक है. So when is escape clause triggered? What are the conditions for triggering escape clause? That I am going to tell you. What are the conditions of escape clause? You should know these conditions. Straightforward mains questions can come. What is escape clause and what are the conditions wherein escape clause can be triggered and relaxation can be availed? Okay. So the first condition, I hope you will make, it is self-explanatory, I hope. First condition is you can, so see, what do we mean by relaxation? Which means you can spend more, no? Because 3 ke jagah you can spend 3.5%, you can borrow. So what are the situations where you need to spend more? Like what happened that you had to spend more? First condition, write it afterwards. First condition is, do you agree with me? Collapse of agriculture. If agriculture collapses, you have to save the farmers, you have to spend more, you have to incur more FD, and that is why this is the first condition in which you can invoke the escape clause, collapse of agriculture. Okay? Second condition, very simple. National security. Attack happened, war happened, you have to spend more. Okay? Or in this only, natural calamity. Barabar? Tsunami and all, you have to spend more, but not more than 0.5%. 3.5 ke upar you cannot go. Right? Third, I have just copied this verbatim from the act, that is why I am writing. Otherwise, it is very easy to remember, but these words are important. Far-reaching structural reforms. If you are bringing something revolutionary, if you are bringing something very new, you might have to spend more than your, this thing from your 3% limit. So, in any of these cases, you can invoke this escape clause and you can breach the 3% limit. Okay? And then very important, which was, which was actually triggered or which was actually used during 1920. The fourth clause was actually used, which is sharp decline in real output of, I hope you know real output of goods and services. Remember real, nominal, inflation. Sharp decline in real, matlab asli wala, not inflation. Inflation keeps coming and going, that is air. Sharp decline in real output of at least 3%. At least 3% of average of previous 4 quarters. Of average of last 4 quarters. So if you take average of last 4 quarters, uska real output was, let's say 100 units, and this quarter if you go to 97 units, then you can trigger an escape clause, which means something is happening, something bad is happening, you have to spend more, you have to salvage or save your economy. So these are the 4 criteria wherein escape clause can be triggered. Please write this down. Okay, done. These are the conditions for escape clause. Now what happened during pandemic was, is 0.5% sufficient for pandemic? No, because we went to 6, 7, 9%. Then legislature amended FRBM Act. Legislature said ki 3%, 0.5% se kuch nahi hoga, nothing will happen. Let us not keep any limit for 1 or 2 years and let us let these things happen, these things settle down, and then we will again follow a path of fiscal consolidation. We followed a path of fiscal stimulus during COVID. Now we are going to follow path of fiscal consolidation as things settle. Okay, so in FRBM Act was amended to allow for a much larger fiscal deficit compared to what was given in the restrictions, which is 3 plus 0.5%. 0.5% only when any of these are satisfied. So collapse of agriculture, natural security, natural calamity, all of these things. Are you understanding this? Do you appreciate this? Do you understand? Very good. Yes? ठीक है, चलो. Now these are done. Now FRBM Act, to know more about FRBM Act also mentions that, or see, the word is, or the name of the act is what? Fiscal responsibility and budgetary management. So it is not only about fiscal deficit. 4 indicators. Which 4 indicators did we see? Fiscal deficit, percentage of GDP, revenue deficit, percentage of GDP, tax revenue, percentage of GDP, and outstanding liabilities as a percentage of GDP. What are the 4 conditions for triggering escape clause? How much is the escape clause, or was? 0.5%. What are the 4 conditions? First, they need not be completed all 4. Anyone can do. First was collapse of agriculture. Second, natural calamity or national security. Third was for bringing structural, long lasting, or overhaul or structural reforms. Fourth was decline in real output of at least 3% below the average of last 4 quarters. Okay, quarters means quarter April, May, June, July, August, September, whatever last 4. So if you are in the second quarter, so quarter 1, quarter 4 of last year, 3 of last year, and 2 of last year. These will be the last 4 quarters. FRBM Act also brought some very interesting and very good measures for ensuring accountability and responsibility of the government. They said that you lay down your budget as per Article 112, which is fine. You lay down your capital expenditure, revenue expenditure, and all of that, which is fine. We have all those papers. But what is your thought process behind it? Why are you going to increase capital expenditure? Why are you going to increase disinvestment proceeds? Why are you going to increase your fiscal deficit? How do you plan to reduce fiscal deficit? We want to know all of that also. What discussion happens while preparing the budget? What is your policy thinking? What is your mind thinking? Legislature asked government, please tell us that also. समझ में आ रहा है? Legislature asked the government, along with the budget documents, please give us papers of your thinking also. Write down what have you thought? Why are you presenting this budget in this manner? What are the figures mean? What is the meaning of figures? What is your future plan? Not only for this year, for 2-3 years. And that is where FRBM mandates. See this is key to this is official. This is not mine. This is official. Key to the budget documents. Okay? See, the list of budget documents presented to the parliament beside the finance minister's budget speech is annual financial statement. Do we know this? Article 112. This is the budget. Demand for grants, we will see that in polity. I mean, we won't see, you will see in polity. Finance bill, polity mein dekh lo. Statements mandated under FRBM Act. FRBM Act made these statements mandatory. These were not there earlier. Before 2003, these were not there. Macroeconomic framework statement. Okay, something called as macroeconomic framework statement. So you need to write down 4 statements which are mandated under FRBM. Please write it down. Macroeconomic framework statement first. First is very important. Macroeconomic framework statement. ठीक है, macroeconomic framework statement. Second, medium term fiscal policy statement. Medium term fiscal policy statement. Third, fiscal policy strategy statement. Third, fiscal policy strategy statement. ठीक है. Then fourth, which is not mentioned here, fourth is not mentioned here. Medium term expenditure framework. Medium term expenditure framework. This is the fourth one. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. These are the 4 documents mandated by FRBM. And keep in mind that this fourth statement was added in the 2012 amendment. It was not there earlier. This was added in the 2012 amendment. It was not there earlier. Please bear in mind these 3 statements were there right since 2003. This fourth statement was added in 2012 amendment. It does not find a mention in the original text of the act. It does not find place in the original original act. Okay? Is it cool? Is it understood? ठीक है. Medium term expenditure framework, macroeconomic framework statement, medium term fiscal policy. This is fiscal policy strategy statement. Understood? So now let us this is the budget website. Okay. This is the budget website. I hope you can see this. So you have finance minister's speech, you have budget at a glance, expenditure profile, all of these things. See this. Right? This. Macroeconomic framework statement, one of the statements mandated in the FRBM Act. Overview of the economy. So it has overview of the economy, economic growth estimates, and it shows all of these things. Prices, how much was the prices, inflation and all of these things. We'll come back to these again when we know all the terms. Now you don't know any of the terms mentioned here. Central government finances, it shows all the different aspects of it. Now let us see what is there in medium term fiscal policy. Do we know all these? Fiscal deficit, revenue deficit, primary deficit, gross tax, non-tax we are going to cover in the next lecture. Central government debt, remember debt, of which liabilities on account of EBR. Oh my god sir, what is EBR? We are going to cover this in the next lecture. What is EBR? Okay, so they are saying, see, revised estimate and next year ka budget estimate is this much. And then why? Because COVID-19 inflicted targets. So basically, economics is nothing but knowing the concept. When you know the concepts, you will be able to read this like a story. See now, even as the government provided relief and support to those affected by pandemic, government continued its structural reform measures. Okay? Then dynamic responding to the challenges. The government has focused on its mandate in the preamble to the FRBM Act of improving fiscal transparency, which means nothing but adhering to proper disclosures and everything. Okay? Does it make sense? You know all these things. Do you understand all these things? What is there? Some of them at least you are understanding, right? So here you will have economic survey, here you will have your expenditure profile, all this budget and all is there. Okay? Now this act, FRBM Act, Fiscal Responsibility and Budgetary Management. Achha, quickly tell me what is the formula for primary deficit? Fiscal deficit minus interest on previous loans. Okay? What is the formula for effective revenue deficit? See, I always focus on these two because the other two are fairly simple and other two is known by everyone. What is the formula for effective revenue deficit? Revenue deficit minus grants for creation of capital assets. Yes or no? What do you mean by crowding in? Positive actions by the government which have multiplier positive effects on other actors or other participants in the economy is known as crowding in. What do you mean by fiscal stimulus? Is fiscal stimulus following a contractionary policy? Yes. No, it is not. It is following an expansionary policy. It is a stimulus. You are boosting it. It is a boost. It is expansion. Does this result in increasing fiscal deficit or reducing fiscal deficit? Increasing fiscal deficit, because you are expanding. You are just growing. Okay? It results in growth also, and the unintended effect of high growth is high inflation. Yes or no? Okay? So we will stop here and we will continue with this. We are going to continue with FRBM. FRBM is not over. We are going to see what other changes were made to FRBM, and we are going to see all about debt management. Okay, debt, you remember debt, government ka debt is keeps on getting bigger and it creates a problem. We are going to talk about debt management. Then we are going to talk about each and every individual tax related aspect. Taxation chapter we are going to cover. Once taxation chapter is covered, we will come back to fiscal policy for a while, and then we move on to the next big pillar of our study, which is monetary policy, which is all about RBI monetary policy, right? Then we will cover inflation, banking, and all other important chapters. And if you have any doubt, you can ask me anytime. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope each and every concept is crystal clear. We directly went to India Budget website and downloaded documents which we read about. Okay? And in the end, what we'll do is, it is a fun part. In the end, when we cover all our lectures, we'll just read through these documents randomly, whether we understand any random paragraph or these documents. If we do, then we know economics. Okay? Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next lecture.